This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Yes, listen up. We are talking this week Major League Baseball playoffs. It's sick. The Detroit Tigers were able to find their way, earn their way into the postseason, and I just thought that the Tigers fans at Comerica really deserved that outpouring of celebration. That night that they clinched was epic. The videos, the talk that A.J. Hinch gave his team was just awe-inspiring, and it was just great to see a bunch of young guys that really nobody believed in have that moment in the clubhouse there, and it was great too, which was funny too because then they proceeded to lose the next two games because they were hungover and just really unleashed psychologically. So that's really the psychology of sports. Most people would have figured they would have had the letdown that Saturday, but now we had an opportunity on Tuesday to sit and watch a Major League Baseball playoff game. And man, it was great to see. We were just talking about just being all up in watching the game, being so emotionally invested because it's been 10 years. I mean, literally, I hearken back to the times we were complaining about the Orioles series and how bad the Tigers look because I think they got swept. They didn't play well at all. And now, fast forward 10 years, nearly 525 episodes, and we could talk about how crazy we were trying to watch that game, how intense the game of baseball is in the postseason. Oh my goodness, what a difference from the regular season to the postseason. How did you watch Game 1? It was a 3-1 win. It was nerve-wracking. It was good to get out to that early lead, and I think it gave everybody nice confidence because you got Tariq Skubal on the bump, and he's the man. But, man, when it got to the 8th and 9th inning, my heart was pounding, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. This is way more nervous than I felt in many, many years watching a baseball game. It was fucking crazy. And then you got, some people probably cussing like myself. What the heck are you doing? Foley in the 9th inning, letting all those. I was like, of fucking course. Now you can't find the strike zone. Now you can't do this. And I was like, oh, my God. And then they bring on Brisky with two guys on. Whew. I almost had a heart attack.
Yeah, it was that 9th inning was rough, man. It was a lot of fun to watch, though. It's been so long since you've been able to see good baseball, much less playoff baseball. And this team has been playing incredible down the stretch to get into the playoffs. It was enjoyable to just sit back and take in a playoff game. Like you said, it's been over 10 years since we've been able to do that. And this team played well. They're going up against a very good Houston Orioles team, and they played incredibly well. Yes, that 9th inning, super sketch. I think that's what everybody's talking about. We're recording on a Wednesday, so everybody's talking about that on Wednesday. But, I mean, it's what's going to happen. You're going to go up against good competition, right? So this is what it is. This team figures out ways to scratch and claw out wins. I don't think this team is going to have it easy in this playoff stretch. I think a lot of it's going to be a bit of a grind. So get your hard hat on and get ready to be freaked out in that 9th inning, because I don't think this team is stopping at this series. This team feels like it's a team of destiny. It's done something that hasn't really been done ever in the major leagues. To go back from, I think they were like 8 games out at one point to then I think something like 39 and 11 down the stretch to get into the playoffs is unreal. And now you're on the road, and it's going to be tough. But look, they've got all the makeups of a team to go on a very historic ride and possibly play in the World Series. I think this team, it really does feel like it has almost something else kind of guiding it, right? Like, I don't know what everybody believes in, or I know pretty much what you believe in, but like it almost feels like there's like angels in the outfield, right? Like there's a Holy Ghost kind of pushing this team across the finish line here. And it's been a lot of fun to be a part of this ride. It's been a lot of fun to watch this. It's been very enjoyable. And look, I was a non-believer. I was the guy who would fight you on putting Tiger talk on the rundown. I'd be like, why are we talking about them? They suck. I checked out middle of the season, just stopped watching, and now I'm back. And it's been so much fun to watch what AJ Hinch has been able to do with this team. And just think about this. He's doing this really and truly with one, maybe two pitchers. He's cobbling together a bullpen, and he's rolling them out there as starters. And you've got guys who are so incredibly young on this team. I think the most playoff experience for this team going into Tuesday's game, I think it was Matt Vierling, and I think he had like 13 major league at-bats. That is the depth of your playoff experience. That is how much playoff experience you have. There's like, I think 12 guys who are rookies on this team. It's crazy what they've been able to do, and it's been absolutely ecstatic to watch. It's been awesome, and I think they're going to keep it up. Do you believe this team has that feel of a team of destiny?
Yeah, it's wild because that's the intriguing part, I think, for a lot of the country, too, is these are a bunch of rookies. A lot of guys with no experience in the postseason, a Bulldog ace in Tariq Skubal. But I think the thing that now we can clearly state is the value of what really a Major League Baseball manager brings. The level of expertise that AJ Hinch has is sick. The way in which his mind is operating is probably 1-2 steps ahead than a lot of people in terms of analytics, matchups. Because, look, it was crazy, too, because the podcast obviously talks about the baseball, but this whole notion of using a reliever to start the game, he did it a couple years ago. And when he first started doing it, I hopped on a Zoom call and I asked AJ Hinch directly. I wish I could find it. I don't know if I kept it, but I literally asked him, I'm like, why? What's the reason why you believe using a reliever to start the game is beneficial? And he gave a really intriguing baseball answer about matchup. He talked about it. He said, this is what you think. You have the advantage of not, typically, teams can set up for a pitcher for days in advance if you understand and things like that. This gives us a little bit of a slight edge. And it, many people think it's just used out of necessity. I think that the Tigers are using this strategy as a belief, an advanced belief of this is how we can be one step ahead of hitters, is they don't know who the hell's going to be pitching. And it's really unique. It's revolutionary. It's not new in terms of the idea, but the application of it in a season where you're trying to have success late in the season is pretty sick. And they're doing it in Game 2 with Tyler Holton. Sick numbers over the last 30 games with 45 innings pitched, 0.7 ERA, 0.64 WHIP. So it's going to be intriguing to see if they get out of Game 2. 3-game series, man, because it's sick, man. It's intense. The numbers are crazy. The last couple of years with the teams that win Game 1 typically have gone on to win. So I do feel like there's something special happening, and it's fun. Now, I think it's great that, Major League Baseball as a whole, at least in the AL, you kind of believe, okay, there's a chance that if this team continues to play at this level, they can get out of the AL and maybe match up against the Yankees in the championship series. And historically the Tigers have had some success, so it's been fun. It's been nerve-wracking. Do you see now that you've seen a playoff game, you watched it start to finish, clutch hitting, good pitching, is there any aspect of their game that you can kind of see? Is it defense? Because you see Riley Green a little bit trying to navigate walls. It sometimes gets a little clunky. I just think that at this moment in time, it's crazy to think that AJ Hinch is pushing 15 buttons a game and they're all working. And you wonder if they do have enough relief pitching. I mean, it's strong. Do they have enough to sustain when they get up against the big dogs later on? And I just would love to see the Tigers and Cleveland play a series, man, because we could potentially be 1 week away from a home game at Comerica Park, man. It just feels spectacular to see where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the crazy part, right? He's been pushing all the right buttons, and he's been kind of playing this Rubik's Cube of how is he going to get this guy in? How is he going to match up against this guy? How is he going to try to dictate the other team's lineup by using somebody out of that bullpen and using them in that starting role? He's been doing this now for months. and it's continued to work. So I think at some point you do have to be a little bit nervous that maybe it's going to wear off. Maybe he's going to kind of run out of all of the answers. But I think at the same point, you've got to believe in your manager. And this is the reason why. You go back to when they brought A.J. Hinch here. This is the exact reason why. It is for these moments. It is for this gauntlet that got them into the playoffs. It is for everything that lies before them. I think for this team, I think there's going to have to be a little bit of heavy lifting that'll have to get done, right? Because when you look on paper, I think the Yankees probably give them the biggest problem, right? Now, yes, they have had quite a bit of success. They did go to the Little League World Series ballpark, and they played there, and they were able to win. And maybe that might have been the whole thing that got this all started. Might have been that walk-off back on that night where they were able to take the series from the Yankees. Maybe that was the kind of the inception of this belief that got this team rolling in this direction. But I think at a certain point, you're going to need a team to do a little bit of heavy lifting for you and really open up a couple of other doors so you can get through. But I think that is very possible. Baseball is a crazy sport. Usually the best team in the regular season does not win the championship. It's just kind of how it works. It's odd. It's strange. Baseball's regular season is really and truly laid down in numbers. Like, you can see what a guy is going to do. If there's a guy who is batting 125 for the first 6 weeks of the season, there's going to be a correction if he's a 300 hitter. And at some point, he's going to end up batting damn near 500 to get that average back up. So in the postseason, series are shorter. Things are condensed. You're rolling out the best guys that you have and guys who have given you the most, and you are usually able to work matchups. And by you putting out a guy like Tarek Skubal 2 times in a series, it's going to help give you a chance to get 2 wins. You rolling out your bullpen the way you're rolling out your bullpen right now, it forces the other manager to be kind of on the fence on what he's going to do and how he's going to roll out his lineup. Also, this team being so young, I think this long grind to get to this point in the season, I think this has been fun for them. I don't think they look at it as a grind, and I think they have the ability to recover. I think this team, you have to remember too, a lot of these guys have been up and playing in the majors but haven't been playing all season. These guys don't have 162 games on their body right now, 163 at this point. This is a team that is kind of coming into their own and kind of hitting that stride at just the right moment. So I think this team is going to be incredibly dangerous in the playoffs. And I think with all the right buttons that A.J. Hinch is pushing, like you said, I think it sets up for a really interesting Detroit run. And look, I'm going to call it right now. They're 1-0 against Houston. I think that they end up winning this series. I think they go on and they take on Cleveland. And I think the Cleveland series will get a little bit messy, but I think they're going to win the Cleveland series as well. And then at that point, you're playing for the divisional championship, right? So at that point, you'll probably have to go up against maybe the Yankees. We'll see. And who the hell knows? But if in a week and a half we're back here talking about this, it's going to be awesome. This is the most improbable run I think we've ever had as Tiger fans. So it's fun. Let's sit back. Let's enjoy it. And I think they kick Houston out of the playoffs.
So I get a chance to get your perspective before we switch gears to the Lions, because this is interesting because the Lions have expectations. It's like win the Super Bowl or else. Yep. This to me has felt more refreshing because there was no expectations. This was supposed to be a ragtag group of people that you just quit on. And look, it was crazy that the network that they're broadcast on got chopped off, so the fan base basically missed the gross part of the season. Now, I paid attention to box scores here and there and watched key games and series, but not as intently. Clearly our interest faded because it was a team that, with Javier Baez, had a clear hole, and it was not a likable team. That was our thesis. It's like, look, you got a guy in there stealing money, and Detroit fans don't like that. They clearly, and I went on an appearance on a podcast, and I said, look, we all know A.J. Hinch is a bright mind. There is no way he is legitimately playing this guy by wanting to put him out there. Like he's being told, look, play this guy. Because A.J. Hinch is one of the brightest minds in the world. There's no way analytically he wants to play the guy, but you're paying him. So you had to do it. And they didn't have anybody better. Now they went and got somebody better. He's not in. Once, like I said, really you get a pass because once they lopped off the weak link of the team, things got better and they got more interesting. And I think the team recognized, all right, we can move forward. We can have opportunity with young, youthful talent that can get going. But this, to me, is a little bit more fun than it is with the Lions who have expectations because the Lions are in that position. When you have expectations, it's like you can only go down. You can only basically win it all and basically get that monkey off your shoulder and all that pressure. The Tigers, they lose the next 2 games. You're disappointed, but you're like, let's go for next year. You got that. Basically, it's kind of like akin to what the Lions were last year. Like, yeah, it sucked that they lost in the NFC title game, but nobody expected the title. They thought maybe they could get there, and it's disappointing. But after a week or two, you licked your wounds and you moved on. This year, it's like win or else. I think it's more fun with what the Tigers have did. You're just like, man, go guys. It's like the little engine that could. It's like, it really is hearkening to tennis where like the number 32 seed can go through and make a run where nobody expects it. I think this is a little bit more fun in regards to seeing something that not a lot of people see. The unexpected way this team is playing has been absolutely amazing, and it's just much more refreshing. Like the pressure's off. Yeah, you want them to win, but you recognize, oh my God, if this is the starting point, the future could be bright. And for many years, maybe because as I've railed on it for years, maybe we could actually see sustained success with these Tigers, with this group. It's sick. It's crazy to think about.
Well, I think part of that joy and some of that, I don't want to say pressure free. They're almost playing with house money. You didn't have any expectations going into the season. I think if we were to go back and we were to poll the podcast where we gave our predictions for the season, I think you said it was something like they were going to win 86 games. I think I took the under, and I didn't think they were making the playoffs. I think you thought that they would be in contention, but I don't even know if you believe that they were making the playoffs.
Yeah,
so
the playoffs, no.
At this point, they're playing with house money. Like they're ahead of the schedule that you had anticipated, and you're seeing the growth out of these players that you have been told are going to contribute. And now this whole team is young players that are contributing. So you're going into this with little to no expectations from early in the season. You got hot at the right time, and you've been playing really fun baseball. And now you're at the spot where you were hoping that you would be next year, maybe in 2 years. You weren't expecting to be here right now. So, this is more fun. This is more enjoyable. There isn't the pressure of having to win it all. The Lions are in a spot now where if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, the season's a failure. That's a lot to tote around. And when, like we're going to do here in a few moments, you're going to sit there and you're going to see, we're going to start dissecting everything, right? Like, why isn't the offense being proficient? Why isn't this guy getting touches? Why aren't they working this person in? Why isn't this happening? Why isn't the defense holding them? How come they're not able to get more sacks? Like, you start really parsing through game tape and you really start breaking down what's going on. You start worrying about a lot of the ancillary things, the things on the periphery. You start worrying about those things because those things are now having such an impact on what the product is on the field. With this Tiger team, we were all excited when Javi Baez went away. And you're excited to see this team scrap out a 3-1 win in game 1 of the Major League Baseball playoffs. And it's like you're not really breaking down inning by inning, pitch by pitch. Now, look, if this team has the ability to say, get to the World Series, let's just say they don't win it, right? Next season, there is going to be an expectation that this is a playoff team and that this team does the same exact thing. And then you will see, we'll start breaking it down pitch by pitch. We're going to start really kind of dissecting everything because the expectation will be there. Right now, playing with house money, this is like basically you getting a weekend without the kids. You and the wife are running through the house with no pants on. It's a good time. That is what this is. For the Lions, it's a little bit different. Kids are home. Pants are on. You're trying to sneak away to the bedroom real quick for a little something, but you got to be quiet. Everything's a little bit tense. You don't need that floorboard upstairs creaking, and you don't need the headboard rocking against the wall. You got to get in, you got to get out, and you got about 3 minutes and 22 seconds to get it done, which is probably about 2 minutes and 35 seconds longer than you need, but that's what you got to do, and that's where the Lions are at right now. It's a completely different space for the Lions compared to the Tigers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a fun atmosphere. It's great. I'm hoping that by the time we record, we're talking about the next series. It's going to be great to see. Hopefully, Comerica Park deserves it, man. The fans deserve it. It should be rocking. Should be a good time. I'm excited to talk about it and watch it and just look. It's the best part about sports is that nervous feeling. And I just think that some Lions fans had that same little nervous feeling because of all the injuries. But boy, I'll say this: outside of the result, Monday Night Football was fun as hell to watch. And
it was a lot of fun.
I just think that for me, there was a unique opportunity to enjoy the game maybe more than most because, one, I clearly have Kenneth Walker on my fantasy team in one league, and clearly him balling out was sick. That spin, whatever the hell he tried to do to evade Alex Anzalone, that just made everybody go, what the hell? How did Alex not tackle him? I just thought his performance was absolutely on point. He seems to like playing at Ford Field, and it was great to see. So outside of that, clearly I loved that because just harken back to when he ran all over Michigan. I was in the press box there when Aiden Hutchinson tried to stop him, and he just couldn't. He basically was like, speeding by Aiden Hutchinson for 5 touchdowns, and that was just legitimately awesome. And then to see a game where that third quarter was just a scoring fest. Look, I'll be honest. Personally, everyone knows I kind of am more of a fan of defense. I like looking at that side of the ball a little bit more. But to be honest, I can see, okay, I get it, where the league is like, look, let the points flow because the game looks so much better. It's so much more fun to watch, up and down, pace of play. It sucks for defenders, and clearly if you're blessed with a son and they want to play football, I'm going to say, hey, Adam, make sure your kid plays offense. It's way more fun. Defense is unbelievably tough. They throw flags. I mean, basically, Carlton Davis was begging, please let me do my job, please. And he actually said it publicly, which was great. But all in all, I'll say this. Yes, points equal ratings, points equal entertainment. And best part is the Lions won the game. Yeah, the defense was Dan Campbell said it publicly on Tuesday. He's like, that's not our defense. That's not exactly what we're looking at. We can't tackle. We have DK Metcalf rolling free, Kenneth Walker busting through the line and having a 21-yard gash for a touchdown. That's not what the Lions are looking for. But in a game like that, what's so refreshing now, cuz in this period of time, and each win like this is great, is that the Lions can adapt and win a bunch of ways. And this is what's been great, is that when there's opportunities, in the past, the Lions have had opportunities. What stood out to me is that the Lions knew that the Seahawks were beaten up, and then they pounded them, and they took advantage with their run game, and they pounded a weakened opponent to the ground, and it was fun to see an offensive explosion, and it was fun to see the offense score points, and we'll talk about what that means for the future. Is it fixed? Look, you do got to take it into context. I don't want to pour ice down anyone's pants. It seems like Adam's in a mood or something. I just think that, look, Seattle, that's why I wrote in our predictions that I felt like the Lions were going to win by 3 or 4. I thought, okay, they'll score. I had 30-27. I thought they'd score, but they'd also give up points at the same token because, look, you can't have 3 guys on the defensive line be out for the Seahawks and not have an impact. The Lions had guys out, but you replace Frank Ragnow with Graham Glasgow, which is not that much of a horrible move. Now, the Brian Branch situation clearly was more impactful, but what impressed me, it stood out to me the most, was Lions saw weakness, took advantage of it, and they won a game in which clearly the Seahawks' injuries on defense made it so that they couldn't control what Jared Goff needed. Because if the Seahawks, I would say here, if the Seahawks had all the guys that they had toe-to-toe, I think they probably get another W.
Yeah, look, I think my biggest takeaway from this is Lions went into this game really banged up. Lions were limping into this game, and they have depth, and they've got good depth. This isn't one of those things where this team is just kind of put together with your starting lineup, and then you just got to kind of hope to piece it all together. Nope, the game plan didn't change. stuff didn't get really switched around here. They went out there and they rolled out their game plan. They rolled out what they wanted to do offensively. Defensively, yeah, sure, wasn't as crisp and wasn't as tight as they wanted it to be, but they didn't adjust anything. This is what we're playing. This is how we're going to play, and that is what they went out there and did. And you got to see an offense. It looked as though that there was a little bit of comfort this week. I felt like the last 3 weeks, whether it was Jared Goff or whether it was some of the wide receivers, or maybe even the offensive line, it seemed like everybody was playing a little bit tight. This week, I think they kind of rolled into this game. They're like, look, we know what we can do. And the thing, too, is you have to realize this has been an itch for this team that they haven't been able to scratch. Like, Seattle has whipped their ass 3 out of the last 4 years. So getting this win this year was a big deal. This was important for this team. This is one of those things that they had to right. You know, it's like when you go into Green Bay and you're constantly losing at Green Bay. You get that win at Green Bay, you kind of reset history. Well, they just did that with a team that has regularly beaten them. And yeah, some of those wins were a little bit improbable. Some of those wins were in overtime. Some of those things were just wonky things that happened. They were finally able to fix that with this victory. So doing that while you're banged up with a lot of guys who are playing out of position or secondary guys, I think was really, really impressive. And to kind of scratch that and rewrite some of that history is a good thing. It's boding well for this team that we have all these expectations for, because you did not want to lose this game. You did not want to go down to 2-2. If you do that, all of a sudden, Seattle is now technically 3 games ahead of you. You're already 2 games behind the Buccaneers. So you had work to do if you lost this game. This kind of makes the rest of the season a little bit more doable if you're looking for that number 1 seed. And look, we kind of wrote Minnesota off. Minnesota's a very good team. Minnesota is doing a lot of very good things. And if you haven't watched, they've got a hell of a coach over there as well. And they're doing things with a guy who has been essentially a career backup and a guy who has been run out of town at every place he's played. And he is putting up big numbers and he's lighting up scoreboards. So Minnesota is no longer this cakewalk that we might have thought it was. Green Bay, Jordan Love's coming back, did not necessarily look right last week, but he's going to get healthy by the time you play him. And then the Bears, I'm assuming the Bears are going to get better by the end of the season, so they're going to be trouble too. So this division is not going to be easy. You needed this win, especially going into the bye. You needed to be 3-1 coming out of this first quarter of the season. And we talk about breaking the season up into quarters. That's what we do. So you needed to be 3-1 coming out of this quarter, and it just kind of helps the rest of the season fall into place. So it was incredibly important that this team got this victory, and they did it the way that they did it. Now, the offense has been the big sticking point with the fan base. The offense has been something that you and I have questioned, and we have discussed quite a bit. So my question to you, is the offense fixed after this game? Because it looked really good. On the ground, you were able to get yards at will. You had some trick plays in there where Jared Goff is catching touchdowns. Didn't think I'd ever see that. You got pretty much all of your wide receivers involved. This was a game where J-Mo was involved, St. Brown was involved, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery were involved. Sam Laporta had some big catches. Didn't have as big of a game as we had expected, but had some big catches. Tim Patrick looked very good out there and contributed for this team. So you're getting a lot of the pieces, a lot of the mouths that need to get fed. They all got to eat in this game. So is the offense fixed?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Look, starting point, they've committed to the run. So that's a good thing. That's something that clearly against Tampa Bay was something that did not go right. I thought the game plan was understood. Why? Because the Lions have had success in the past passing, but that's not the formula for success for this football team. It's give the ball to Devontae Adams. It's give the ball to, because I'm writing about Devontae. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 29. It's about giving the ball to David Montgomery. It's about giving the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's emerging. It's about using the weapons that you have to be able to go out there and execute. And then that facilitates the passing game with Jamison Williams who, again, on my fantasy team has blown up, which you've seen why I took him 2 rounds earlier, because clearly he put in the work. Bigger, stronger, faster, a little bit more mature, and I think that when you realize the speed that he has, oh my gosh, that was sick. I want to ask you this about, because it's been interesting to talk to different people about it. It feels like, okay, right now he's the home run threat. You get him in space, let him use his legs. But he only had 2 catches, and he had an explosive. Is that okay? Or do you still feed him a little bit more? Because he is being targeted, with the two high safety, so the deep throws are not as good. So that's why the underneath is good in the middle. Screens, end arounds, I think you can get him involved in different ways. But the way in which they kind of use him this week, I'm okay with. 1 or 2 explosives if you can get it. Work him in the middle. Try to get him in space when you have the opportunity. Get him in run packages. Use him like Deebo Samuel, like I've said repeatedly. And you get the most out of him where he can kind of get in stride and go. And I just think that that's great. And also, too, some tricks, which were fun. But really, this offense starts in the trenches. Pound the rock. David Montgomery is angry. Mm-hmm. And it seems like he's angrier than he was last year. Probably just internally, in a good way for him, is probably like, oh, all the attention going to Ja. And, okay, I'll show him what's up. When I get the ball, I'm just going to take Devin Witherspoon and bounce his head off the ground. And it was great. I mean, literally, in football, it is not common for a defender of Witherspoon's size to go into a running back and then for the defender to fall down with that kind of velocity. It doesn't work like that. So the velocity, the manner in which the strength comes out. Like if Devin Witherspoon would have hit me, I would have flown back 50 yards. Okay? Picture that. Witherspoon runs into David Montgomery and bounces off the ground. And it's a visual that if you keep watching it, it just is crazy how strong he is and how motivated he is. And he embodies everything that the Lions are about. And then you got Jahmyr Gibbs, who I asked Dan Campbell about directly on Tuesday. I said, over the first quarter of the season, what do you see? And he keeps saying they're close. But because if Dan Campbell's saying it and you go back and watch the video, he's like, John, we're close. Like within a millimeter of 50-yard runs and explosive runs. And Ja got 70 yards or so. And you look at it and you say, because if Jahmyr Gibbs starts doing the, Derrick Henry full speed ahead thing, man, look out, because that gives you competition moving forward. But, I will say this. Did you watch the Baltimore Bills game? Because that scared the shit out of me. Baltimore playing their best is football-wise, they're unbeatable. Like, you're not stopping Derrick Henry. You're not stopping Lamar Jackson. The bugaboo that they have as a team is their wide receivers. Like, if you can actually play physical just early on, man, that was pretty sick. Pretty sick to watch. Did it scare you at all to see other teams so far in the league kind of early on? Because the Lions are a Super Bowl team. You always got to look at, you talked about the Vikings. I'm not concerned about them. I just think Goff's better than Darnold. The rest of the league, though, having an opportunity to watch on Sunday, man, Baltimore looked good at their best.
Yeah, I mean, look, Baltimore is one of those teams that was supposed to be in the Super Bowl last year. I think Baltimore's big issue. I don't think the regular season's a problem for them, right? They have a ton of weapons, and their quarterback is so dynamic, and their defense does such a good job of keeping them in games and helping them win games when things just aren't going right offensively. I think their big thing is it's the playoffs. They seem to crumble like a cookie. Now, them taking care of the Bills the way that they did was very impressive. Look, Buffalo's got a great team, got a very potent offense, and it was a little bit eye-opening to see how they were shut down. So, look, there's a lot of good teams in the NFL. I know San Francisco really beat up right now, but that's still a team that's going out there winning games. We've already kind of talked about what this division looks like, and I feel like this division is a freaking gauntlet. You've got a lot of teams that you're going to have to overcome. I think Seattle, team that you just beat, and I think Tampa Bay, a team that you just recently lost to. Those are two teams that we're going to be talking about down the stretch here. Don't be surprised if you have to play one of those two teams in the playoffs to get to the next round. So I'm not necessarily concerned or worried about other teams right now. I'm more worried about getting things fixed with this team. And look, the initial question was, what is the offense fixed after this game? I don't know if it's fixed. I think it's in a much better spot. And I think kind of what you've seen from this game was they started to rotate David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in the same series. That's something that they really haven't done all year. They did it quite a bit in this game. Those guys got touches, and you're right. They established the run. Establishing the run is important because it helps lay out a recipe for success for Jared Goff. When you start taking things off of Jared Goff's plate and you just have him play within the confines of the offense, that is playoff Goff. That is the guy that we want. He's able to make the right reads, able to make the right plays, able to do what he has to do and get the ball out of his hands. You give him time in the pocket as well, he's going to be able to make those right reads. I think what you've seen here, right, getting everybody involved was so important. It helped lay and kind of reset the foundation for what this offense needs to be. Everybody now has an understanding. I think your question regarding Jameson Williams, does he need to get more touches? I think if the game dictates that, then sure. But I don't think you need to force feed him. I don't think you need to force feed Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that's kind of where some of this clunkiness came from with this offense through those first 3 weeks. I think certain guys were trying to get force-fed the rock, and it really took away from the construction of the offense, the way this offense is supposed to work. I think you getting a healthier Sam Laporta when this team comes back from the bye, I think that's going to be so incredibly important because he helps open up so much other stuff underneath that it allows stuff over the top to really become open because now he's distracting that defense. He's pulling guys up and pulling guys away. So it helps really open up a lot of the run lanes, helps open up a lot of different passing windows as well. So I think the offense took steps to getting it fixed. I think when we come back from the bye, we're going to have to kind of see, does this offense maintain this? Does this offense kind of take what the defense is giving it, and does it feed the guys, and do those guys stay engaged and continue to produce? I don't necessarily think one or two guys need to see the ball all the time. I think you have to go with what's working and who is open, and you need to establish the run. I think establishing the run and winning up front, playing that bully ball off the line is the key to success. And I think this game plan for this specific game really helped lay out what you need to see for this offense to take that next step and for Jared Goff to play his best football because he played a hell of a game. Jared Goff played amazing. The guy had 0 incompletions, threw for 2, caught 1. I mean, you can't rave about him enough. And Dan Campbell doesn't give him a game ball, which I think was funny. And I thought was a really neat story coming out of the game. But I think you can see when Jared Goff is comfortable and when that run game is going and he is just kind of in the zone and he's just feeding the guys that get open and he's reading the plays and guys are allowed to play their role, it's a different looking offense. It's a much more efficient looking offense, and it's what's going to help this team win football games. So it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that to answer your question. So I think you've got what you need to take the next couple steps forward, but that run game is incredibly important, and him not force feeding guys the ball is kind of the other side of that coin. So I think offensively in a good spot. I think they're hitting the bye at just the right time. It gives them some stuff to kind of look at, to just sit with and digest, and to figure out what they've got to do going forward for this long stretch on the back end of the season. Now, penalties were a huge problem in this game. The final drive of this game, the Lions defense gifted Seattle at least 28 yards. The secondary had at least 6 penalties. I lost count as this game was continuing on. The defense is so much better than last year, and we've raved about it. And this defense helped this team to a 2-1 start. The defense is, I feel, probably top 10 in the league right now when you look at everybody else across the board. I think this defense matches up really, really well. And I think this defense is going to play a huge part in this team's success this year. But the penalties are going to hurt this team. Do you believe the penalties are going to be the undoing of this defense in a big spot this year? Let's say they make it to the Super Bowl. Let's say It's the final 90 seconds of the game, and you need a defensive stop because you're up by 5. Could you see a spot where Terrion Arnold or CD3 get called for a pass interference? The next thing you know, the ball is moved into the red zone, and you're going up against, we'll say, a guy like Patrick Mahomes, or maybe Josh Allen gets there. And you've already kind of talked about, or maybe even Lamar, you've already kind of talked about what those offenses look like, where they're just able to kind of slice you up at will because they are so good. Do you see the defense costing this team a chance to win a game like the Super Bowl?
Yeah, and if you check out Lions on SI, I think the thesis is, I think the talk about violence and aggression is great, but in the NFL, that's not great because everybody's like, okay, you want to be aggressive and violent? Well, we can neutralize that. This is a family-friendly sport. This is not about, there are kids in the stands. There are cheerleaders. There are families. There are gals in the stands. And yes, just even though fans are fighting in the upper levels of the 300 in every stadium, this is a sport that needs to not go down that road. And I love the fact that the Lions are going down that road, but I just think that this game, you clearly saw it. Like you can clearly legislate violence out of the game. And they've done it at every step of the turn. Can't hit the quarterback. Well, I'm glad that you can horse collar a quarterback in the pocket. That's pretty sweet. I think that more guys should do that. It sucked that it happened to Goff, but it was cool to see him get flung around by a defender. It was like, yeah, one for the defense. But violence, look, man, I hate to say it, but I don't think anybody's going to be terribly surprised. The violence of the game, I love. I love the big hits. The ESPN segment where they used to, I think they took it out, but I don't watch it anymore, so I don't know if it's still there, where they would show a hit and then just cheer after and be like, yeah, the big thumping hit. And I was like, yeah, I loved it. I loved that segment. That was like, okay, I got to stop what I'm doing, stop working, stop, pull out the phone in church and figure out when that segment's on, I want to see it. But they've taken it out, like, for the safety, starting with the CTE and the brain injury and all that kind of stuff. And then Damar Hamlin with the nation seeing him basically laid out. It just kind of took it as a different sport. And it's different. I get it. And it was cool to see Minkah Fitzpatrick of the Steelers come out publicly and say, this isn't the sport I used to play. Like, I want to come out here and fuck people up. I want to hurt people. I want to hit. And the Lions say it, and they try to do it. But look what happened. Kirby Joseph, does some things, and Stafford comes out and is like, you're dirty. And then they highlight that and play that all the time. So I think that flags will be impactful with the Lions, but I think the blessing is they can overcome it. Like, this football team, I think, is being talked to in a manner by Dan Campbell that's like, look, the whole world is against you. Nobody thinks you can do it. Everybody thinks that Lamar Jackson is the superstar. Everybody thinks that Patrick Mahomes is the man, and you're just the scum of the earth. Let's go prove him wrong. And it's a rallying cry. Detroit versus everybody. Grit. And what does that mean? Grit's not, hey, wilt when the heat gets the hottest. What the Lions want is, we don't care if you throw 40 flags against us. We're going to come back and fight. And that's what they got. And I think they have a chance. But to me, it's all in the NFL. Bottom line, it's about talent. And right now, you have talent at different spots when healthy. Now, the good thing is that, okay, other teams are going through it just as sickly and just as much injury-wise as the Lions, so it makes it a little bit more fun and easy that, okay, we lost Branch and Seattle lost 4 guys. So, because I think it's a great thing to see that the Detroit Lions I thought the bye week came at the worst possible time. For this season right now, it came at the best time. You probably are looking at Branch and progression with Ragnow. Barnes is long-term, Iffy's long-term on IR. So to me, just getting healthy with all the guys you got, and Laporta, I think, will be good. And Dan Campbell said, too, when I asked about Jahmyr Gibbs, he said, look, I started to see signs that Laporta and Gibbs got their legs under them, which literally means, in essence, what we've kind of believed, which would have been that the Lions and some of the rest of the league treat the first month of the season as the preseason. And when you say get your legs out under you, because Gibbs and Laporta have missed practice time, it's just not the same. You just aren't, like, game ready. It takes time. And you can practice all you want, 2, 3, 4 hours, but until you get your legs under you in a game situation, it's different. So the bye week came at the perfect time for them, perfect time for me. And I just think that this football team can adapt to the Zebras. It sucks because, it takes a lot. It must take a lot for an NFL player knowing that he's probably going to lose $25,000.
Yeah.
To stand in front of the media and be like, I'm just begging for the officials to stop throwing the flags. Like, what do I got to do? I got to buy you dinner. I got to get you a massage. I got to follow you on Instagram. Carlton Davis said that right in front of everybody. It was great to see, but we all walked away going, oh, he's getting fined.
What did you make of Terrion Arnold? It was the third call against him. It looked like there was a little bit of clutching and grabbing by both the receiver and Terrion Arnold within the first 5 yards, which to my recollection, that's allowed. Terrion Arnold ends up kind of slipping, and as he's going down, his hand kind of runs down the back of the jersey of the wide receiver, who, as coming out of his break, also slipped. And they basically threw a flag on that, calling it, I think it was either holding or maybe it was pass interference for that one. To me, that looked like the weakest call in the world. And look, I know Terrion Arnold is a rookie. I get that he hasn't earned his stripes and hasn't earned the benefit of the doubt from the referees. I just don't. I think some things are so blatantly a call, and I think other things just are not. And I kind of felt like that shouldn't have been a call, especially at that point in the game where that was a big moment. You don't necessarily need to throw that because the guy slipped out of his break. Like I just didn't get it. What were your thoughts on that specific play?
Yeah, it's, I get it. It's just the nature of football. It literally is like no contact. But here's the thing that's crazy is that most of the time officials will let some jousting take place as long as it's not a grab, as long as you're not altering the path of the receiver to the point that he can't catch the ball. You got to let these cornerbacks play. You got to let them compete. And I just think that, it's tough too because, Terrion Arnold is learning on the fly. And look, how are you going to blame him? He's going up against Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They have the advantage, clearly. But what you're not seeing is you're not seeing huge chunk plays given up by Arnold in coverage. What you're seeing is huge chunk plays given up by penalties. So that's fine. Look, you'll take it 3-1. And I think that this is all learning experience. To me, I think you let it happen, let him learn. Like you need for him to see, like, look, you are doing this. Don't do this. This is a flag. Let it happen now as opposed to the postseason. He's just a victim of youth, a victim of officials going, welcome to the league, kid. We're going to legislate how you perform. And you can't put your hands on the guys. Like you can't get a fistful of jersey. You can't just, yes, I think he's gotten 8 penalties. I think 3 of them you could have argued maybe you didn't need to necessarily throw. So I do think, though, he's gotten a good lesson, a good start for him in regards to playing, and that's a good thing. And it just stinks because, everybody's like now looking at him like, okay, you're Mr. Penalty, but that's fine. You're a first-round pick. That's the heat you're going to get, and he's built because you see differences than Okudah, no doubt. He's in stride. He understands how to rebound. He understands the fundamentals of the game. It's just one of those things where grabbing the jersey, hands to the helmet, hands anywhere, before the ball's there. It's tough. So, but I do think that he's equipped to handle everything that's going on. This defense is so different in terms of their tackling and their abilities and stuff like that. So, and they're going to get better. They're also coming off of a game now in which they gave up far too many yards, and they're going to be pissed against Dallas. So it's going to be fun because I'm going to Dallas. I'm flying out next Friday. So
you're going to have a great time.
Yeah, first time in Texas.
Your first time going to Dallas?
What's that?
First time going to Dallas?
First time in Texas ever. I circled 2 games to try and travel to, which was Dallas, because everybody said, look, outside of it, they're like, look, Jerry World is great for the game, and it's also great for media. It's like ice cream sundae bars, and they said food for days. They said literally it's the best media setup of all time. And I think from what I recall, they said they even serve beer. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, okay, let me go check it out. It's going to be a big game. It's going to be worth it. Big coverage. And I think that, maybe another chance on the revenge tour to see some controversy screwed. I'm sure next week we'll talk about it. Which way are the officials going to screw the Lions this week? And we'll see, because it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a narrative. I mean, the whole reporting eligible nonsense was crazy. So I just wanted to see it. And so fuck it. Let's just go see how this is going to all shake out. So I'm excited for it. And I'm excited for the next 5 days, just not going down to Allen Park, just watching other stuff. And yeah, I really enjoyed Sunday. I had the 2 TV set up. I had Red Zone on, and then watched the Bears game, and then watched the second game with the Chiefs. And then I just thought, man, Chiefs Chargers was crazy. And then Sunday night was just football heaven. Was like 2 teams punching each other, and then just seeing Derrick Henry run and Damar Hamlin full speed, still falling 3 yards behind Derrick Henry, was crazy. So fantasy football implications was great. Memo, you can say this word for word and slowly. Tell Alyssa I whooped your ass in a way that was unfair. I'm sorry, but I'm very happy. It was great. My guys,
she was pretty sad.
Listen, I was watching that going, oh my God, I'm gonna lose to Alyssa, because I started slow but then finished strong. So I was very happy. Let her know that John is very happy that he got to 3-1, because I had a bad loss last week. So I like my team this year. I was like,
you got a very good team this year.
Yeah, I like it. I like the way it shook out. That was a good draft that I had. That was crazy because it was half and half. I was half in Ford Field and half auto, so it worked out well. And you're doing well too, so it could be 1-2 again, and let's see how it shakes out. So it's going to be a good time, man. Oh, the Lions, good time for a bye week, good time for the Tigers. It's a good time for Detroit sports and the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Make sure if you have any questions, hit us up. Let us know. We're having a good time with it. We're doing, the way in which the blessing of this podcast is we do it our way, 24/7, 365, covering all the teams. And it's so fun to talk about wins and baseball strategy. And for the Detroit Tigers, let's go. Before the game, let's call it. Let's get a down 2-1, ninth inning, Torkelson. The magic continues with a 2-run homer. So this is being recorded just hours before Game 2. So we have it on stamp that I'm calling for a Torkelson walk-off to be able to handle business. Top of the ninth, and then let's see, does Foley rebound or Brisky again? One of those two, Foley or Brisky, will come in and shut it down. Hopefully it's a sweep, because my little heart is not handling a Game 3. Whew! Cuz let's fire it up next week for the next edition of Doc and Jock.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.